watching the final cast and listening to the final cast on the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. I'm Brad.
I'm Matt.
I kind of messed that up a little bit. It's all good though.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like the last 6 or 7 shows, your mic just automatically mutes you. It's probably because it knows no one wants to hear your voice. But I mean, it's
Probably.
okay.
I should just quit, guys. This is my last show.
No, that would suck. Oh, dude, how you doing?
Good. You?
I'm dying still.
Any fishing? Oh, really?
No, dude, I was in the. Well, I told you I was in the ER on Saturday. I woke up. I had a killer sinus infection. Well, it came up as just a cough and like a cold, sniffly pressure. And then on Friday, I woke up at 2 a.m. with like the worst pain I've ever felt on the left side of my face. And I mean, this is, 5 years in the Marine Corps, doing a bunch of stupid stuff. You can attest to this when I was younger, doing stupid stuff all the time, and never felt this pain ever in my life. And I couldn't sleep. So I woke up, just held my face and took Tylenol, didn't do anything. And I called my guys at work and I was like, hey, I'm not coming in today, run the store. And I just sat in bed all day, just like holding my face with a warm compress. The only thing took a little bit of the pressure away.
Dang.
Just dying, man. I was taking Flonase like Tic Tacs, or not Flonase, Mucinex like Tic Tacs. Didn't do nothing. I probably overdosed in acetaminophen or whatever, how you say that word. But so Saturday comes, same pain. I went to bed at 1 a.m., woke up at 2. So I had a total of maybe 3 hours of sleep between 2 days.
Dang.
Woke up Saturday, worse pain. Called the ER at the VA and I was like, hey, I just can you guys call me something in? They're like, oh no, your primary doctor would like to see you. We can get you in on April 3rd. And I was like, well, I'm either going to be dead by then or better because the VA sucks. And I was like, can I just come to the ER? And they're like, yeah. So I had to drive all the way 45 minutes away from my house to work to set something up because no one else could do it. And then came back and dude, my face was just bad. So I went to the ER, was there for like 2 hours. They gave me a shot in my butt, which was like the most painful thing ever. And then the pain went away. I got on like 6 different pills and got some good pain stuff. And I felt good last 2 days. Like the pain's away. I still feel like crap, but dude, the pain's gone, which is all that matters.
Yeah, your voice sounds a little deeper.
I know. My wife actually loves it for now.
It's awful, man. I know. I hate being sick, which I'm sick all the time. So,
I mean, you are sick all the time. It's a little weird. Okay, good. We got our guest back. I was literally so, guys. Real quick before we get the guest on, we suck at doing this, but this is gonna be a really cool show. So I want to run through these real quick. Sponsors of the show: Nico Baits, next generation of soft plastics, the best super plastic baits you could ever buy. Fantastic, different presentations, tons of new colors, are coming out with new stuff all year, and Dark Horse Tackle Box. Subscription service, the best baits you've never heard of. These guys, I mean, you see us do reviews every single month on them. We're getting new stuff every month, and they're fantastic. They're having a huge sale right now. Hopefully, it's still going when the show comes out, to where you're getting all their overstock boxes and things for a discount. So definitely check them out. Definitely a subscription service. Me and Brad both attest to loving, because every box you could literally fish with what you get in the box for the whole month, and have every technique almost covered every single month. So it's awesome.
Paddle 20 will get you 20% off your first monthly subscription. And I keep forgetting to mention this. So that only works for the monthly box. It don't work for the 3-month prepaid and stuff like that. Some of our listeners did the 3-month prepaid, the 6-month prepaid, and it didn't work. They're like, what the heck, man? I'm like, sorry. Should have told you guys that. So my bad.
Yeah, it's just the monthly subscriptions. But again, I mean, the prepay is not a bad idea. I've done that before because it's just out of sight, out of mind. You pay for it once. If you like it, awesome. If you don't, you can keep just not worry about it. But dude, the month to month, I promise, this is not LTB. This is not mystery tackle box. This is the stuff. This is choice.
I've been throwing all my stuff, so
I mean, you get great stuff every single month. It's fantastic. But this show, I am super excited, mostly for 2 things. One, this is area that I'm not super well versed in. I've thrown an XI3 on the front of my boat and just luckily didn't die, but that's about my expertise with it when it comes to motors and things on kayaks, especially when it comes to inflatables. But also on my YouTube, I follow like 4 people. 2 of them are hunting related. One is MLB The Show content, because I play MLB The Show on PlayStation like it's my job. I wish it was. That'd be dope, but it's not because I'm not that good. And then Jeff Little fishing. It's fantastic. So we got Jeff Little on this week with us. Jeff, say hi to everybody out there.
Hey, folks.
Jeff, before we start, let them know, for the people that I would be super surprised they don't know who you are, but let them know who you are, kind of your background, and we can go from there.
Background. I started fishing out of a kayak in '98. Didn't know anyone else who did it. I actually grew up near DC fishing the Upper Potomac River. Got tired of being blown around on a super windy day on the Upper Potomac with my parents' 17-foot aluminum Grumman beast tank of a canoe that I would solo, and said there's got to be a better way, and eventually ended up in it was an Old Town Loon 138. Went from that to some whitewater boats, got pretty heavily into the whitewater, not for the sake of whitewater, but for the sake of chasing river smallmouth in places that other people would say you're crazy for going there. Earned ACA, American Canoe Association certification as a paddling instructor in 2001, did 10 years as a kayak fishing guide / instructor. Towards the end of that, my full-time job kept me from continuing to teach in person, started teaching the video camera, did a bunch of stuff with Wilderness Systems, developing boats and managing pro staff. Soon, thereafter, my passion for kayak fishing turned into a full-time job with Torpedo. And that's where I've been selling, not just the ultralights, but we sell the travel motor and the cruise motors, which go up to 25 horsepower, which we put those on John boats, but mostly the ultralight. And I've been fortunate enough to work with our product engineers in Germany, which I'm going back in April to do a little bit more development. We've always had the 1 horsepower. Mm-hmm. When we went with the 3 horsepower, it really was a result of me taking apart a 3 horsepower travel motor, which has a traditional like transom bracket, like you put on the back of a John boat. Yeah. I took one of those apart and stuck it on a Pro Angler 14 just to see what it would do, and made a video. And at some point, like, it was unlisted, showed it to the guy, one of the 2 guys that started the company. He looked at it and said, "This is cool, we need to do it." And that's how I leapfrogged to like 6 layers of no and got the opportunity to become a product. So
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
You mentioned ACA. I want to hit that real quick because that's something I always was interested in. Like, how do you get started in doing that?
So I just did it from the standpoint of becoming whitewater certified, because I was teaching, and I don't want to say in whitewater, but I was teaching on moving water, right? Mm-hmm. And there was no fishing designation forever, and there hasn't been. They've tried to do it, and honestly, they're ACA are paddlers. They're whitewater paddlers. They're touring kayak paddlers. They don't get fishing, but they're coming around again. I know probably 6-ish, 7 years ago, Juan Verut, who really did what I did after I did it, after I stopped teaching the in-person classes, he took it to the next level. He really did, in terms of the quality of instruction and actually engaging with ACA, with American Canoe Association, to have a fishing specific curriculum that made sense for sit on top, rotomolded boats in fishing moving water, instead of, trying to force the whole whitewater, like, we don't have to Eskimo roll. Like, why is that in a class for? Anyways, they're coming around to it again, and they're actually certifying it based on a fishing specific curriculum. And it's taken a long time to come back to it. But I will say, if you're interested in doing that, it's something that is coming. I actually see a lot of our kayak fishing guides going through that curriculum and becoming certified instructors. Maybe folks that make a living with kayak fishing tournaments want to supplement it with classes.
Mhm.
I don't know. Right now they're just taking folks that are already certified as paddling instructors and making sure that they are legitimate anglers and making sure that they can teach the angling part of it and certifying them. But that's sort of something that's in development right now, and it'll be good. The push behind it is that kayak anglers die every year from what
Yeah.
they don't know about everything from low head dams to hypothermia to
Yep.
not being able to get back in their kayak because they haven't practiced it. To There's so many things that go wrong. I mean, I think of Joe McElroy down on
Oh
Gunnersville and
yeah.
trouble he got
Yeah.
in trouble with, and he's experienced. I fished with him. He's no slouch and he's no novice. But there are things that need to be educated to save people, especially with so many new people getting into it. And
Yeah.
so much of the stuff that I put on the Little Stuff YouTube channel, if you haven't subscribed, that's where I put my content. It's the Little Stuff. I'm Jeff Little. It's a little stuff that makes the difference between fishing and catching. The little stuff is in the details of how you rig a kayak that make it really perform well. I put a lot into knowledge that will make sure that the viewer catches more fish and then doesn't die.
Mhm.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's
Yeah.
something that we need in our area. And I know adding a motor adds another element to the whole game.
totally
A lot
does.
a lot more dangerous activity, I guess. So
It
um,
Yeah, I
depends.
mean,
There's a safety component of it. When you're out on big water and here comes the storm clouds coming in, you need to get off quick. You can do that. But I think when people get motored up, they think, "Oh, I can do all this other extra stuff," and they never learn the paddling skills.
yeah.
I
I
did some
know.
crazy stuff with that 1103 to punch up through whitewater, and I got it maxed out going full throttle up through there, and I'm still paddling because the paddling gives me that stability. It gives me a little bit extra push to get up through the rapid, but it's having that paddle in your hand. If things turn literally sideways on you,
Yeah.
that is the key to saving yourself. And knowing how to do all that stuff, knowing how to do a brace, a draw stroke, and even a really effective sweep stroke, those are all pretty critical. So
Yeah, I mean, I know guys who like got into kayak fishing through me because they saw me do it. They came from boats, and they immediately go out and drop, $4,000 on a Hobie or something, and then 1,200 or $2,000, depending on what it is for a Torpedo or for a XI3, and then never pick up a paddle. Like that's just there. And some
yeah,
of them I had to like take your paddle. Well, I don't need it. I got the motor.
No.
Take your paddle.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to happen, and then they'll
right.
get into a situation where I'll be out with them and their motor will die. Like the XI3 will either die. The big thing I had with the XI3 is it would just do whatever its mind decided to do because it has a little computer in there that loses its mind all the time. Brad can attest to
Wow.
that too.
Yeah.
And they'll have to turn it off and be like, well, now I got to paddle. And they're ineffective in how they're paddling. They're getting tired way quicker. Their paddle's too short for them because they just got a cheap paddle that was, they're 6'2" and it's a 240 or 230 and something short. It's it you kind of mentioned it right on the get when you said, they get the motor and they think I can do all this type of stuff. I really think motors can sometimes make people overconfident
Yeah.
if they're new. For the simple fact, and I mean, even if they're a seasoned paddler, they can sometimes be overconfident. Like myself, when I had a paddle and I saw a storm coming in, I'd be like, all right, it's time to go. I got to go because I got to paddle back upstream or whatever. Then I put a motor on, I see a storm, be like, I know how fast I can get back, and I've been caught in the rain more than a couple times where it could have turned really bad.
Right.
Because I pushed it too far. And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you to where the paddling aspect still has to be there. They still have to have some of that skill and knowledge to
So
safely paddle.
if any of your audience is wanting to watch some of the videos and make sure that they're being safe or even more effective just in say whitewater navigation or even big water navigation, the playlist that you want to find on the little stuff is kayak fishing skills. There's a bunch of different playlists. The biggest one is smallmouth bass, but kayak fishing skills. Yeah, I like that sweatshirt, Matt. Kayak fishing skills is an important one, and I'll just leave it at that. There's a lot to look through there. The reboarding videos alone are something that could save you for sure.
Yeah, we went pretty in depth. We had Chuck Earls on, and we talked about reboarding because he has a video to where there's
Chuck's
literally
awesome.
Chuck's
he
an
is.
animal. First off, the dude is built different. Because there's a video he has, I can't remember what river he was on, but it was literally slush. Like there was more ice than water.
Rocky.
Yeah, and he just jumps out and he just chilling there, tests his dry suit, and I was like, yeah, I got a dry suit, but I mean I've been in the water with it when it's really cold, but I don't think I'm gonna do that because I'm just built that way. But I mean we talked about reboarding. He's like, yeah, a lot of people they don't ever practice it, and then he's been out in the water with guys on Erie who have flipped and they have no idea how to get back in their boat and they're 2 miles offshore. And me, that just told me I need to practice it way more because that would terrify me beyond all things.
Oh yeah.
I know there's not stuff in Erie that could eat me, but my mind would immediately be like, dude, I'm dangling in the water too long.
Well, Erie can eat you.
Yeah.
Well, the whole lake in of itself, any of the Great Lakes can just eat you. I think, what is it? Is it Superior or Michigan that has a couple thousand shipwrecks in it?
Yeah.
It's one of the two. And they just kill people like all the time.
Yep.
So yeah, that just terrifies me. So that's literally what pushed me to start just doing re-entry training a lot more and kind of rethink. I used to be the guy last season. I'd have 6 rods, 3 on each side with side stagers. Now I'm like, man, I think I'm going to leave one side open just in case something happens. So
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So
I need to take less rods anyway. So it's a win.
You do, man.
I know.
Less is better on the river.
You're not wrong. Yeah, you're not wrong. But all right.
So let's talk a little bit about like reboarding with like a heavier motor for say like an XI3. I know like a Torpedo, it'd be a lot easier, but like, is it that much harder with a heavier motor?
Reboarding or flipping it back over? Like,
I guess both, because I guess it's all one thing.
That's the first concern is, are you, let me grab something to use as a visual. So here's my cell phone. It's a boat. This is where you sit. This is the bottom. When you go over and it goes like this, you're going to actually have to get up on top of it and grab this side and then rock it till it gets back and it flips. There are boats that I've owned that I can't do that. They're too wide. They're just too wide. You add to, okay, here we are with the top, and you start adding things. Here's your black pack. We put some other stuff on, but you get the idea. When that goes over and it's down there, there's water resistance to try and flip that up. A black pack alone is going to fill up with water, and you're not just lifting the weight of the black pack. It's all the weight of the water under there that's going back over. So you need a leverage advantage. And what I would tell you, and you'll see it in the video, there's actually there's one that I'm in I forget what the color is, but it's like yellow, orange, and black. It's mostly in red. It's red and orange, but it's a Jackson kayak take two, and it's me. The thumbnail is me flipping that thing over using a strap, just like a tie down strap, and even on my bona fide RVR 119 is an easy one to flip back over, but I still put it in there because the strap permanently stays on the seat back or on the frame of the seat, so that if I'm upside down and it's really rough and for whatever reason I can't get back in, or if I have a lot of gear on there and I have that resistance, it's upside down like this. You've put the strap there, and you actually stand there, and the strap comes up like this, and you fall back, pulling that strap, and it goes over. So your full height and weight pulling back on the strap flips it over. It's just, you'll see the video and you'll be like, oh, I get it. And now I have to go out and get my NRS or Yak Attack or whatever extra tie down strap I have, and it now lives with the boat. It lives on the seat frame, because that's the easiest place. If it's in a hatch somewhere and it's gone like slid to the back, you have it, but can you get at it? Probably not.
If you open the hatch when it's flipped over, that thing's going to fill with water.
Right.
Yeah.
I put it on
You're
the
done
seat.
then.
Yeah. I just lash it back and forth around the seat, and it's out of the way, and it's there if I need it.
I can definitely see like a take two. I can almost, because that's for people out there who don't know what the Jackson Take Two is. That's a kayak that's designed for two people, can be as a tandem boat.
It's a wonderful solo boat, though.
Oh, it is. It's kind of like the.
It's my favorite dump truck, man. Whatever I put in there, just dump it all in, and it's like got all my stuff. Yeah.
It's like the Crescent Crew. One of Loveland's team members, Mike, uses the Crescent Crew, which is a tandem boat that he uses as a solo boat. It's just huge, plenty of room. But I mean, it is a big boat to do that without like a leverage strap or something.
Yeah,
I can see that being almost close to being impossible, just because how wide it is and how much water you're displacing just to move it, flip it back over. And then, you add a Torpedo in the back that might be down, so there's water resistance from that, or an XI3 in the front. Now you have weight kind of disproportioned around the boat. So
it's the Torpedo weight, and even the battery. The battery's like 13.2 pounds. Like, that's not your resistance. It's your box. It's your tackle. If you have it strapped in, if you haven't strapped it in, you've lost it.
Yep.
But it's it's the Boondocks landing gear. Those tires right there, that's resistance. Rod holders, they're resistance.
I'm about to install some sidekicks tomorrow. That kind of makes me a little nervous.
Those things make me nervous anyway, just because sticking up, I'm afraid to get caught on them.
Well, they don't stick up that far. It's not like they're straight in the air.
Yeah, I know.
You lock them kind of horizontal. If they were straight in the air, that'd be like dumb. I don't even rod straight in the air anymore. Yeah, I'm just not a fan of that at all. I broke too many tips. But let's move into the joy of kayak fishing, which has changed. I've only been doing it for 3 or 4 years. Brad's been doing it a little bit long, but you were doing it since '98. It's evolved a ton to where we can have all these goodies, all these bells and whistles, motors, fish finders, everything along those lines. But something new to the community, which we'll get into motors a little bit later, but some new to the community is inflatables. And I wouldn't say, I'm sure, I don't know if you were the first to do it. You're the first person I saw that put a motor on an inflatable. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are kind of, they're not buying the inflatable game yet, because they're like, oh, it's got to pop or something along those lines. But the Torpedo right on the back of it and took that through some gnarly stuff.
So my experience with inflatables actually started with a cataract. So two pontoon tubes next to each other with a rowing frame in between.
Mm-hmm.
Cataract. And I had a 16-foot, they were 16-foot tubes. And we had 3 seats on it. I had the Torpedo Travel on the back. I had a power pole. I had the custom mesh flooring in between. I had really nice Sawyer oars. I mean, it was such a fun rat rod of a river, vessel, and it was, I would fish out of it, sure, but it was what I took my kids to the river, and I mean, it was a floating jungle gym, is what it was. I mean, they just all summer long, we took that thing, launched it, I'd motor upstream, and then we'd float back down, and they'd jump off the side and climb back on and giggle and just do it again and again and again. And yeah, we caught some fish.
Mm-hmm.
What I understood with that floating jungle gym called a cataract is that I could take it regardless of what the river level was. If it was crazy high, I could take that through class 3 rapids and just play in it. Just not be afraid of any of it. I could also take it out when it was just stupid low, because that much of a footprint of compressed gas, and I'd play around with how much pressure was in there. If I really wanted to go skinny, I'd actually deflate them so that the tubes would go from like round to like flat. And the flatter they went, the more surface area there was, the bigger the footprint, and the skinnier it would go. And I knew it goes crazy skinny. Now, the downside of that is it caught wind like crazy. Like it just, it was a windy day. You were on the oars and you were working the oars. Like you were sore.
One of these?
Yeah. Yes, except, that's 2-person. And, I had a 3-person that was just a beast. It was so much fun.
Oh, man.
Juan Verut actually owns that boat right now, and he guided out of it for a while. And it's a cool rig.
You ever think about putting a Torpedo on that?
Yeah, I had a travel motor, so it was a 3-horsepower Torpedo on it. But what I learned from that is inflatables go crazy skinny. I wasn't in love with being blown around by the wind. And fast forward to, I'm working for Torpedo, in one of our accounts is Sea Eagle. So Sea Eagle makes all kinds of different inflatables. And one of them that I got from them really is a great design. It's the Fish Skiff 16. Again, another bigger inflatable boat, but it was flat bottom, and the whole bottom layer was basically a single drop stitch flooring, flat bottom hull. And if I'm taking someone who's never caught a snakehead and we're not going to go in kayaks, we go on that Sea Eagle Fish Skiff, because it goes in like that much water. It's actually my skinniest water boat that I have. And I put oars on it, and I put the Torpedo. I've actually had the 8-horsepower Torpedo on that one, which is fun.
Oh, jeez.
That thing probably flies.
Yeah, I think I hit 10.4 mile an hour. It's a cool rig. But then, I worked with NRS, and they said, yep, let's, we have inflatable kayaks if you wanted to try one of those. And I started with the Star Rival Fish. And on the YouTube channel, the playlist Inflatable Kayaks, the first video on there is me rigging the Star Rival Fish, which now the model that's what's evolved from that is the NRS CUDA 126, which I got one of those now. But when I looked at that, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, inflatable kayaks are cool, and that's a fairly low profile rig, which won't get blown around by the wind that bad. How do I get a motor on it? Well, there's one Yak Attack part that unlocks everything, and it's the switch pad flexible mount with Mighty Mount switch. I know that's a lot of words, but it's
Yeah.
it's something that you glue onto the surface of the inflatable
Mm-hmm.
that has the little square Mighty Mount that you can put a T-bolt, and you can actually attach rod holders, camera mounts. I mean, all the stuff that you can do Yak Attack Lego stuff with, it starts with that. But I would bridge them where I'd put one here and one here, and I'd put a piece of track in between.
Yep.
So I did that, and I actually went to Trey from Innovative Sportsman and said, I need a motor bracket. He's made all sorts of adapter plates, and he's he's one of my best Torquedo dealers because he makes all these aftermarket products like the rock guards and the metal steering triangles and all the adapter plates and foot control steering kits. But I went to him, and Trey's been someone who over the years I've been like, I need to figure out how to rig this boat or that boat or whatever it is, and I don't feel like just making another Walmart cutting board type adapter plate. He does it professionally with 1/4-inch aluminum.
Mm-hmm.
And I went there and I brought this cardboard cutout of, I need it shaped like this, because I put that on the back of the Star Rival fish, and I have it in. I'm like, can you make this for me? And he just kind of stares at me for a minute, and then like looks around his shop, and then smiles and looks at me and reaches up on top of like some, top shelf of something, pulls down an adapter plate, and he says, do you remember this? I'm like, yes, we did the Feel Free Lure 13.5 with that one. He's like, yeah. I'm like, you think that'll work? He's like, I know it'll work. He's like, I just have to bend it. And if you look at the back of that, that boat, that is actually the bent to accommodate the kind of up scoop at the stern of that boat. Yeah, it was a repurposed, prototype adapter plate, and allowed me to get up to 6.8 mile an hour with that boat.
Yeah, that's pretty quick.
Oh yeah, that's insanely fast.
I have faster boats, right? I have with that same motor. I have one that did 7.6 mile an hour. It was a Wilderness Systems Thresher 155, discontinued boat. I own 3 of them because they're just badass boats.
Yeah.
And they were discontinued, and I was like, I still had a friend at Wilderness, and he's like, we're clearing those out. I'm like, I'll come down to South Carolina and pick up a few. But what I mean, in 6.8 is a great speed. But really what you're getting with that package of that boat is super shallow draft.
Yep.
Shallow draft. Like on average, it's between 2 and 2.25 inches. That object that's between 2 and 2.25 inches deep, you're going to rub on it, but keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
A rotomolded boat, a rotomolded kayak, and I actually did a survey in. I actually started a Facebook group called Kayak Fishing Surveys, which anyone can put a poll in there that they want. It's all it's really supposed to be. I have to go through and clear all the spam every couple months because I don't keep after it. But if it's a poll and you want to know something about kayak fishing, you put it up there. I put up this question. I framed it this way. Said, go out to your garage or wherever you keep your kayak. Put it on the flat surface. Find the mud line. Where's the mud line? Put the tape measure on the floor and tell me where's the midpoint of that mud line on your kayak. That's roughly your draft.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you put a motor on it, it's going to be much higher because you have the wake that comes up, and that's different, you know. But when you're still, when you're not under propulsive force of a 3 horsepower electric outboard, the middle of that mud line is what you draft. In the range of responses that I got, I didn't ask them, hey, how much does your kayak draft? Because people would just guess. People are like, oh, mine's awesome, I can draft in 3/4 of an inch. No.
Yeah.
I bet every bass you catch is a 6-pounder too. So, you know, I got him to go out and actually take a measurement, and the measurements were between 5 and 9 inches. Call it 7.
Mm-hmm.
You've just gone from 7-inch draft to 2 1/4. I can explain it conceptually, but it isn't until you get in an inflatable kayak and go fishing in a shallow water fishery or even a really grassy one.
Yeah.
Matted up grass, you don't like go through it and like push it out of the way. You just float right over it. It's easy.
Yep.
And the paddling of these is just stupid easy. Like there's just no resistance to it. That was one of the first things I noticed when I took it up to the Susquehanna, and actually attainment is just the, you know, paddling or whitewater term for like punching up through, like paddling and going up through a rapid, attaining upstream. I attained something that I don't think I could do. You know, I could do it with a motor, but I paddled it. It was easy. I'm like, this is totally different. This is so shallow draft for sure is a huge advantage. The next one that I'm going to talk about is primary stability. So when people think of stability, you know, there's primary and there's secondary, and the difference is primary fights you early on the lean, and secondary fights you late into the lean and keeps you from flipping. Inflatable kayaks, it's the physics of compressed gas, and the outer tube on this is 3 psi, and the inner one, it can go anywhere between 12 and 20 psi. That drop stitch flooring allows you to really get it tight. But you know, the expression I use to get people thinking about inflatable kayaks and what tremendous primary stability they have is, have you ever tried to drown a beach ball?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Look at the physics. Now, you flatten out that beach ball and you're standing on it. Like it just, you lean all the way on one side and it just doesn't budge. I actually did a video. It was with Jake Harshman and Alex Fielka, and we were up on the Susquehanna, and I had not this kayak, but it was the Innovative Sportsman one, the Osprey 1436, and I was like, all right, let's find out what it takes to flip it, and you know, the kind of violent, convulsive like wailing I had to do to get that thing to go over was comical. Like it really was. Like it's just, I don't want to say they can't be flipped, but like if you're on flat water, you basically have to lean as hard as you can, lunge, and then pull the chair over with you until you're even then it's hard to get it to go over. So crazy primary stability.
So I actually did flip my Star Rival once.
Did you?
I did. So I was getting a little greedy going down through these riffles, and I was casting. I was like, all right, one more cast. Well, I went sideways on top of a rock where the water's just dumping over the top of it real fast. I hit the rock, and the water just pushed the other side of the tube up and under. I just flipped.
Wow.
I was like, wow, that was crazy.
Which, I mean, I was
but
super surprised.
You were doing things that you wouldn't even think of doing with a rotomolded boat.
Right.
Like you probably trusted it way more than you would, with a hard boat.
Yeah. Yeah, if I was going down going down those riffles sideways, I probably would have gotten stuck or something.
Right. So the third thing I'll talk about, other than shallow draft, stability, the last one is stealth. It's more than if you drop your pliers in a rotomolded boat and it goes boom and it spooks fish.
Yeah.
It is that. It totally is that. It's more than if the wind, pushes you into some riprap and it goes boom, crunch, and it spooks the fish, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is that. The thing that I didn't really understand it until I put active target on a kayak, on a rotomolded kayak, and actually watch fish spook when I shifted in my seat, and the seat frame on a rotomolded boat go creak, boom.
Huh.
You don't hear it. You don't, like, you hear it, but you don't think about it. But when you shift your weight just a little bit and you're watching on the screen, and those fish go, phew, and they jump, and then they start swimming off, and you're like, oh my god! All I did was like lean this way a little bit, and the frame of the seat did something. And my point is that with hard boats, like, we transmit all sorts of noises out there,
Yeah.
whether we mean to or not. The inflatables eat that noise and vibration, and it stops there. There's something about the physics, and the reason, or the way that I know it, the way that I know it's true. I was filming. This was last spring. I was filming Corey Dreyer, who has been. Do you guys know Corey?
Yeah, I follow him on Instagram.
Yeah.
He's been doing kayak fishing tournaments. Well, as of last spring, I actually filmed him on Lake Murray. It was over 10 years. So I was doing a video because he's one of our team Torpedo anglers, and I was just doing a video to focus on him and his 10-year retrospective of kayak fishing tournaments. So that video is on the YouTube channel if you look back to last spring. But we were on Lake Murray, and there were some big fish starting to pull up shallow, and he was pre-fishing, and I was interviewing him between, and I hung back with the video camera. Like, I'm like, a good, I don't know, 2.5, maybe 3 casts back, holding the camera, looking at him, just trying to get good footage. And occasionally, after he moves on to the next spot, I would just motor along and look over and be like, oh, there's a nice one. I missed that. But it kept happening. And at some point, I'm like, Corey, there's a giant under that dock. He's like, I saw 2 or like 16 inches or so. I'm like, nope. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. How much bigger? Bigger. Like, not a little bit, but bigger. Okay. And we moved 3 docks down. And at some point, I'm like, come on, come back. You're going to catch this one. He's like, another big one? I'm like, yes. Come look. He's on the other side of the dock. And I'm like, all right, look on this side of the dock. You see that like corrugated metal, like bulkhead there, and where it goes, there's a 2-foot section of it before it hits that riprap. I'm like, look in that, and it was totally clear water. Look in that like 2 or 3 feet of water right there. Just keep your eye trained on. I'm like, can you see it from me? He's like, yeah, I see it fine. Nothing's there. I'm like, I know. But I watched this, after you left, I watched this fish inside of 10 minutes come back there 3 times. This fish is going to come back to right there. He's like, all right. He's like, how big was it? I'm like, it was at least 6. Like, really? I'm like, yeah. Another 2 minutes goes by, and he lets out with, well, some words. Holy, that's way more than 6. Because he sees it. It's swimming right up underneath the dock, and it goes over to that spot and sits there. I'm like, can you catch it so I get on film? He's like, no. He's like, I'm saving that one for tournament morning. I'm like, okay. And he catches it tournament morning. I think it was over 23. It was like 23 and a quarter, 23 and a half. Why was I seeing fish that he wasn't? I don't wear polarized glasses when I film, because when I look at the video screen here, I don't have a battery in this one, but when you look at any screen with polarized glasses, you can't read it real well. So I don't wear them when I'm filming. He was wearing them because he was fishing, and he was sight fishing. He was looking for them. He didn't see him, but I saw him, like, repeatedly. He's in a hard boat. I'm in an inflatable. And that's when it really clicked for me. And I knew that, like, over the year or so that I'd been in an inflatable before then, I'm like, I'm just fishing better than this. I can't explain it. Well, stealth is part of it.
Yeah.
Stealth is part of what an inflatable does for you. And to have that insulation, that noise insulation between whatever you do topside and not having it transmit those vibrations down in there. Now, I got to see it, recently and I think once you know that you do it, you can pull back on just, if you're in close and you know that, all right, it's from here to there where I think they are, you just don't move as much. You do a little wrist flip cast instead of, like, lean back and, really hit it. But you can, I don't say you can almost be sloppier in, with worrying about that in an inflatable. So that's it. That's my pitch for inflatables, right? And I'm going to go into all the reasons why people won't get them. All right. But those are the reasons to get them.
Yeah.
Shallow draft and the freedom that it gives you in those shallow water fisheries, right?
Mm-hmm.
Primary stability. They're such a nice boat to stand up and sight fish. When, like, you're in a rotomolded boat and you're kind of doing this, shifting back and forth. Every time you do that, you're sending out wake. You're telling the fish, there's some weird thing out there moving around. You stand on that inflatable and it's there. It's just, it doesn't move on you. And that's another layer of stuff. But it is it is the primary stability. So shallow draft, primary stability, and stealth. So the reason most people will say, "The heck with that, I'm not getting one." First time a fishing hook gets near that thing, it's over, and I'm going down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Hear that all the time.
Yep. I actually did a video where I gave a brand new crankbait to my buddy Jake, and I'm just like, just swing on it, just wail against the outer tube.
Yep.
Go ahead, just go nuts. And, like, he gets to the point where I'm like, "Your arm tired yet?" And he's like, "You set me up." I'm like, "Yeah." And he beat this. I mean, Jake beat it. I mean, he's like, "You sure you want me doing this?" I'm like, "Yeah."
I thought he was going to break the rod.
Cataract that, like, I'd had jerk baits bounce off that thing with a hook set on what wasn't there and had it bounce off and go flying up. I'm like, yeah, hooks. Yeah. It ain't hooks. It is something, though. You will get punctures.
Mm-hmm. But it's not going to be like a pop like people think it's going to be.
Yeah, I'm about to say it's
not from the hook. Seep. It's not from the rocks. It's not from. You know what it's from?
Grass.
Nope.
Oh, I don't know.
Fish fins.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I didn't think about that.
Think about how many times you bleed.
Yeah.
You get finned. All right.
I've got a scar on my thumb.
So it happens, right? This star rival fish, I have patches. Actually, the worst one was Mike Iaconelli running me over with his torpedo ultralight.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. I didn't actually film that. I just talk about that and like
Yeah.
show the big patch, you know. But here's the thing. When that happened, I had Terrade Type B and a K-Pump Mini, and I went to the shore, and he's like chasing after me, like, "I'm so sorry, Jeff." He felt horrible. Like, "I'm good, man. This gives me a chance to use my new pump," and I did, and I pulled it up on shore, got the water out of it, and I put this Terrade Type B. It's just like, I don't know. It's like it's like clear Gorilla Tape that's gummy,
Huh.
right?
All right.
And it's awesome, and it'll get you through that day. And it's been more than once that I've had to get through the day, but I did. I got through the day. I slapped it on there. I pumped it up with a K pump, and I was good to go. It's a whole lot like if you do mountain biking, you're out on some single track in the middle of nowhere, and you land funny on a rock or come through and hit a bunch of thorns or something, and you're losing. What do? Either you have a spare in a tube, well, we don't carry spare inflatable kayaks, or you have a patch kit with a pump. It's the same kind of thing. So I got through. It took me that first time I did it, and it was two like 9-inch gashes in the outer tube. The center chamber still had all its air, and the chamber on the other side. So it's 3-compartment inflatable. So 2 outer ones and then the middle one. I didn't go down because I still had 2 out of 3. But when I went to shore, put the Terrade on there, pumped it back up, I was back up to all 3 in less than 20 minutes in probably the worst. It was the worst rupture that I had. Now the fish fins, I didn't figure out that was a thing until it was funny. It was actually on a lake in Massachusetts somewhere. I'd filmed with David Haddon, who used to work for Old Town, but now he's with a Skiff Canoes, and we were filming the travel motor on that. But then he had to leave, and I'm like, I'm here, I'm going to fish, and I was catching these shell crackers, these big, beautiful, panfish, just throwing out a little trout magnet, just catching them one after the other, and probably like, a little over an hour, I was sitting in one spot, just kept catching them. I'm like, okay. That was a blast, but I got to get back. And I took off across this open lake, and went across. There was a boat wake that kind of washed over the boat, and then I looked down right where the floor was, right in front of the seat, and it looked like an air stone in an aquarium. It just looked like all these bubbles coming up. I'm like, oh God! And I knew exactly immediately, like, those are fish fin punctures. Right. So I realized, okay, that's a thing. And I'll have to get the Aqua Seal, sand it, clean it, put the Aqua Seal on it, and it's fine. Like, on that trip, I was back to it being, even that 15 or 17 PSI middle chamber, I was good to go. I mean, it was fixed. But it took a day to really set up. And, the longer I used it, I realized, okay, I'm getting him on the side chamber as well, where I was actually filming Jody Queen on Candlewood Lake in Connecticut. And we were both catching really beautiful smallmouth, but they would jump and hit that side tube with their fins out. And, the next day I'd look and I'd be looking down, like, I see bubbles coming. I must have, But here's the thing: when you get those fish fin punctures, it's not like, oh, you're going down, or even that, like you get through the rest of your day and not touch it, and you're fine.
Yeah.
It's the next day, or maybe even the day after that you squeeze that tube, and you're like, That ain't
Yeah.
right. And honestly, you take the K pump and just go pump, 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 pump 8 times, seal it back up. You're good for the next 2 days.
Yeah.
But it's annoying. More than anything, it's annoying. So, I kept rigging these, and at some point, I wanted a different hull than what was out there, right? And I designed one, and I showed it to some folks at NRS. I showed it to some folks at Siegel. I'm like, you should make this. It'll work better with the Torpedo. Like, I understand the right hull shape for it and length and everything else. No one really made it. I mean, I couldn't, I talked to Jackson and said, you get NRS to make it, you brand it, Jackson, same thing
Yeah.
with Wilderness. I went to Wilderness. I'm like, you guys own Boardworks. You could do this. And no one moved on it. I'm like, at some point, I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to order it. I'm going to find a manufacturer and I'm going to order what I want. And I did. And initially it was it was all one chamber drop stitch flooring. Then I went to 3 with a second prototype, and like Trey watches me, from Innovative Sportsman doing this. He's like, you put all these switch pads everywhere. Like, you look at this thing here on that side alone, I got 3 right along the seat, another one towards the back, and then 3 where the motor is. And I've done and that was the first one I did. I built more on it afterwards. And he's like, dude, you don't have to do all that. Just put 4 of them on there, and I'll figure out how to get some track that's long enough, and you just make a box, and then you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at some point he was like, can you get more? I'm like, you want one? He's like, nah, I think I just want to sell them. I'm like, I got to do all this stuff with the Coast Guard, and he's like, so do it. All right. So I order them in, he builds them out, and I think he's got the first 20 in, and I think they're accounted for. Maybe not. I'm not really sure where he's at with it, but I got 20 of them in, and he's basically taken. He worked with the Yak Attack to license their top loading track, and he has it 4-sided where you can run like wires or anything else underneath it. You can put things on the side, like you put the tubing for the foot control steering on there that tuck on the inside, and you can still get a T-bolt, a mighty bolt in there. You rig whatever you want on it. And that Osprey 1436, I've been using it for on and off, but for about a year, and I've yet to patch it. Even fish fins. And it's because I told him, like, in later prototypes, I'm like, even when I've told NRS, I'm like, you need to get it double layered from right behind the seat to about where your ankles are.
Yep.
You do that, then the fish fins won't be an issue there. But most of the inflatable kayak companies are so in love with, in this instance, 31-pound hull. You notice when I said the advantages are shallow draft, stability, stealth. Yep. I didn't say lightweight. There it is. There's one of them. It looks so different than what it is now. Like, he actually has a high-low seat that he's come up with that I really don't think he's ripped off anyone else's design.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I don't think it has that paddle park up front, that long handle. I think that's gone. The track on it is anodized. Oh yeah, he made his own landing gear and put it on there. I don't think he's gonna sell it. He's not gonna sell it because it's his own. Like,
yeah.
if he sold it, he'd be in trouble with Boondocks. I think he's probably
Right.
actually becoming a Boondocks dealer. He'll just put Boondocks on there.
Hmm.
And it was the same thing for him. I mean, Trey, you know, he's a tournament angler. You
Yep.
know, and he's good. But he's used that one for a year and hasn't put a hole in it. So
That thing's so
And-
low profile.
And even looking at it, I mean, you're talking about, the 38-pound mark or 31-pound mark. Even that with the high-low seat,
that boat right
it's only
there,
at 85.
yeah, it's 85 with the.
That's-
it's the frame and the seat in the hull is was 85.
And what's crazy is it has a weight limit of 450 pounds and a
Yeah.
horsepower limit of 5.
Yeah, it's
That's awesome.
I'll tell you something about the weight capacities. They're totally not standardized. There's no here's how you test a kayak to make sure that it's whatever you say it is.
Yeah.
I found that out when I had an RS 117.
Yeah.
And I'm 250 pounds because I enjoy food. And I had an XI3 on the front of it, a 100 amp 12 volt lithium ion on the back. And I mean, not a heavy battery compared to the deep cycles, but still for a lithium, it's a heavier battery. Every last bit of tackle I could fit on that thing and like 7 rods. And I was on the same, I mean, I was probably pushing 400 pounds all day long. And I was at the same mud line as I would be if I had nothing on it. So maybe a little bit lower, but not enough to where I was like worried. And I took that on Dale Hollow and didn't care. And I took it everywhere and didn't care. And the guy who has it now is 100 pounds heavier than me and loves the boat. So
Cool.
Yeah, I agree with you there. It's kind of like in the hunting aspect with archery and bows, and what they do for a bow to give you the max feet per second is they'll take an arrow. Like for instance, the arrows I hunt with are 330 grains.
Yeah.
And I don't even get close to the max FPS. It's because the max FPS arrow is like 205 grains, and that's how they say it's max FPS. Oh, you're going to shoot 330 feet per second with this bow.
Huh.
Yeah, if I was like shooting a Nerf bullet, sure, but I'm not. So
Right.
I mean, it's all relative. Kind of, it's just whatever they say it's going to be, depending on this perfect circumstances, the X, Y, and Z. So
Yeah. They're probably more on the careful side than anything.
yeah, maybe.
So I will tell you one thing that the inflatables are not. They are not big water boats.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can cross big water, and you take the wave over the bow, and it just washes through there. Every little accessory that I put on there, I put on the track, and I put on a little retractor of the Yak Attack T-Rain retractor, because it's going to wash through there, right? If you're out there in say 2.5, 3 foot waves, it's constantly going to be washing through there. Now, does it sink it? No, you're not going to sink it, but it slows you down so much more than a rotomolded boat in really rough condition, because it holds the water in there. Less so with the Star Rival Fish or the Cuda 126, because they're smaller and it clears the water quicker just because it is smaller. But that, it's funny though, that's a 14-foot inflatable kayak, which allows you really good efficiency in even shallower draft when you're pushing up through rapids. And I mean, there's a lot of advantages to that. The bigger the footprint, the shallower the draft you're going with the same amount of weight.
Mhm.
I also think the pucker factor would be a lot higher in rough water with an inflatable.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like, to me,
it's not from, hey, I'm gonna flip. It's just, it's holding water.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, man. To me, like, it's sitting on an inflatable is like, this is cool, and I know all the pros to it because I've watched Brad draft through water that I'm having to get out and pull my boat through and sneak up on eddies and stuff. But if I was like, for instance, the last 3 years ago, I was at Dale Hollow, real bad rainstorm came through. I was fishing a tournament. The first day of the tournament, I did major poo-poo. So I had to stay out there the second day just to prove that I knew what I was doing.
Right.
And the rain, everyone else is going in. I'm out there with another guy. And we're both, it's our first bigger tournament in a kayak and on big water. And I was more stupid than not. And the rain's coming and big boats are rolling through. And if I was in an inflatable, like I was in a Big Fish 120, which is a big, fat, square monster boat that doesn't do anything particularly well other than it's just huge. And I felt comfortable because I was like, this boat is giant. If I was in an inflatable, I'm sure that would, you're the testament of that. In rough water, it'll shed water or not shed it, but it'll wash through and you're not necessarily going to sink it. I would just feel like, man, I'm on an inflatable. I'm going to die. And that's just how I would feel.
You're not going to die, but like you're moving slower than you would. And I mean like 3-footers, 2.5 to 3 foot is rough anyways, but like a good big water design boat, like like a pro angler, like even my Take 2 handles that big water. I mean, I know Chuck and I were out on Erie and 7-footers with that, and that was fun. But there are boats that handle that better than others. Old Town's older Predator is probably one of the best true big water boats that are there.
Loved it. Loved the Predator.
Yeah. They just, and even this is going to sound funny. I believe that the RVR, the bona fide RVR 119, yeah, it's built as a river boat. I think it's a good big water boat. It sounds funny because it's a smaller boat, but it has that secondary stability that allows you to, if you are caught sideways on a steep wave, it stays under your butt.
Yeah.
And, if you have a breaking wave that's chasing you and trying to turn sideways, you can do a sweep stroke and you get that thing squared up so where you're perpendicular on that. So the RVR is a great big water boat. I know it sounds weird to say it, but I believe that. But these larger inflatables are not. That's not to say that, like, say, I'm going to use an example of fishing the tidal Potomac, right? We have big expanses of open water where the wind can get up, and you have to navigate through that. Can you grit through, especially with a motor, getting across 3 or 4 miles of that to get to the other side, to get to super skinny water? Yeah, you can do it. You're just not going to do it nearly as efficient with the power you're given.
Yeah.
As you would with a rotomolded boat. The flip side of that is once you get to the other side, you're going to go where the rotomolded boats cannot.
Yeah, it's true.
How big is that with the tournament regulation changes of can't get out of the boat?
Yeah.
It's I think it's the kind of thing that where if people are doing a lot of the tournaments and they go to different parts of the country and say it's a big lake but it has some shallow water opportunities that not everyone can get to, like say maybe they have their hard boat but then they also have their inflatable for getting in that skinny stuff or a river where you want to run up in a river and say, listen, I've stayed in my boat. I've not gotten out. I've not dragged it over. Think about it.
I think the inflatables. So before I really got into kayak fishing, I was in boats, and I would do, as a boater, I would be super optimistic and do some of the the registration for FLWs or stuff as a, go around on my leave in the Marine Corps. And I'd always see dudes go up in these real skinny stuff with aluminum boats.
Yep.
Inflatables are becoming the aluminum boat of the kayak world because we
Yep.
have these, you see tournament anglers, like my tournament boat's a P127. Brad's got a P127 for big water. Pro anglers, all these big boats, the Jackson Nar, they're all out there and they're great because they're huge and you can put all your stuff in them.
The Jackson Nar is the fastest pedal drive that I've put a Torpedo on, just for what it's worth.
Oh, wow. It surprised me a little bit because it's such a big boat, but you have all these big boats and there's certain aspects, especially like you said, how the rules are changing. There's certain water now these big boats can't really touch, but the inflatable boat is going to go right up that skinny water and hit spots you'll never even touch. Look at you with the spreadsheet.
So
That's awesome.
These are my speeds of different boats.
What's number one fastest?
Wilderness Systems Thresher 155. This was a big water boat that didn't sell very well because people just didn't understand secondary stability. But it's a 15.5 foot sit on top, like
Monster.
Big water boat. 7.6 mile an hour.
Ooh.
Wilderness Systems Attack 140. 7.4 mile an hour. Native Watercraft Ultimate 14.5. 14.5 foot, fairly lightweight boat. 7.2 mile an hour. What do all those have in common? Those are the top three. What do they have in common?
They're all long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else?
Probably pretty narrow. Well,
yep.
Not as wide as some of the other kayaks on the market.
Correct. One other big thing.
Oh man.
They're all discontinued.
Yeah.
We don't make these anymore. The analogy I use is that like kayak fishing used to be like sport biking, and everyone is afraid of like, all right, I get this, this sport bike and I'm afraid to lay it down, so I'm going to buy a trike. And now all the sport bike shops just sell trikes.
Oh, I got you. I'm tracking.
Like instead of, hey, let's learn how to not flip boats by like flipping a boat a bunch of times and learning, what it takes to flip it. We're just going to buy a barge. That's what we got. But I think we're coming back to it. I think Crescent Kayak has, a lot of, I'm just going to say it, Wilderness System Tarpon-esque kind of designs, which is great. Like when I was a kayak fishing guide, the Tarpon 120 was the workhorse of my business. And I used it to teach people, I had people flipping that boat like an hour into the class. I'm like, okay, let's flip boats. And they're like, what? I'm like, no, you're going to do this because the things that are in the rest of this class, you won't feel comfortable doing if you're afraid of flipping the boat. And you'll also not know that point of no return. I'll go down the rest of this list, but I will say between 7.2 and 7.6, there's very few boats that achieve that. The next number down is 6.8 miles per hour. And there's
good size drop.
3 of them. Yeah, it's a statistically significant gap.
Yeah.
It is the Crescent Kayak Crew.
Mm-hmm.
I can see that.
The 6.8. The Star Rival Fish. Not a long boat, but a pretty lightweight boat. But it's an inflatable. 6.8. Innovative Sportsman Osprey 1436 also does 6.8. Then we go to 6.7. We have the Take 2, the NAR, the New Canoe Pursuit. Then we skip over 6.6, and we have at 6.5 a lot of them. Jackson Kayak Liska, Old Town Predator 13, Jackson Kayak Yupik, the Wilderness Systems Attack 120, the Jackson Kayak Kilroy HD, the Bonafide SS127 at 6.5. And then it drops down. You have boats at 6.2. You have the Jackson Kayak Big Rig HDFD, the Pro Angler 14, the Crescent Kayaks Shoaly, the Hobie
Huh.
Outback.
Oh, so the
I
SS127
won't embarrass the
outruns
last
the
two
Shoaly.
boats, but they're big boats. They're
Yeah.
big boats. The Shoaly would be so fast if it had more length on the back end.
Oh, okay. I was like, when you ran through the 6.8s or 6.5s, what are the SSs in?
6.5.
And 6.5. I didn't hear the Shoaly in there. I was a little surprised because I would assume just the Shoaly. Now, granted, I haven't been on a motored version of the Shoaly, but I would assume the Shoaly would run faster than the SS just because of size.
Well, it's like a foot
Wow,
shorter.
Well,
Yeah.
that's true too, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, length of wetted surface is pretty important. Seat position is important. That was one of the
Yeah.
things that I showed Trey. Look how far forward his seat is in that boat.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You know, the rods are horizontal, pointed back. It's got a lot of boat behind him, and that helps the efficiency.
Huh,
So,
interesting.
have you got the RVR on that list? I'm just curious.
I don't. I haven't put it on here, but it's 6.4, which it is the fastest kayak under 12 foot.
Huh. Yeah. Matt's getting all pumped up, man.
Oh yeah, I'm pumped, man. I've already been out on it a couple times, and I think it's one of the best boats I've ever been in. Just it's so smooth of a boat, but I haven't had it on the river proper yet, so I'm not gonna.
It's really fun with the Torquedo because like the water pouring off the front, it looks like you're peeling a banana.
Nice. That's cool.
That's awesome.
I haven't been in
That's
it yet.
awesome.
I need to try it.
I know you're gonna get in it, Brad. You just gotta
I
let
know.
me enjoy it first, and then you can get in it. Now, I said that with the P127 when I got it, and I don't think Brad ever got in my P127.
I didn't.
So,
Brad's gonna flip it intentionally.
well, let's do that with none of my stuff on it because
Correct.
Yeah.
I have a Japanese fishing addiction, and my stuff is A, hard to get, and B, makes my wife mad at me when I buy it. So let's be careful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
I
need
just
to
had to
do
buy
that though.
for everyone out there, since we're going down a rabbit hole that I always go down anyway. It only took an hour and 18 minutes this time. It's way longer than normal. If you have Japanese fishing gear, it's 9 times better. It's just to buy a new reel instead of buying parts for it, because that Terry's clutch button that I lost on the river, Brad, I bought another one yesterday. It was $127
Jeez.
for a clutch button. Yeah, I regret it already, but it's already shipping from Tokyo and it'll be here in 2 days, which is insane. So
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
yeah, I don't want to now, but I don't have a choice. So, but man, we got a ton of information and I love it. These are like my favorite shows to do.
Yeah.
I guess because you kind of covered the why people don't want to buy it. Is there any other recommendations when people kind of give us stoppers, like we talk about inflatable, like, oh no, I could never do that? Do you have any other, things that you've heard people say why they don't want an inflatable that you can kind of explain on?
No, tell them that it sucks and they shouldn't own one, and then you can take all their money in the next tournament.
I mean, that's a good enough reason right there. I think the whole flipping it, that was the biggest thing, like, because it sits on top of the water and everybody's like, well, I'm worried about I'm going to hit something and flip it. The beach ball analogy is the best, because I was that kid who was at the beach when I was younger, and my dad would get me a beach ball and I'd go out there and try to hold it under the water, and every time I'd let it go a little bit, it just shoot up in the air.
Yep.
It's inflatables want to stay up. They don't want to go down like at all, and you have to fight them to go down. So it's the same concept.
It's really the nicest boat you can have to stand up in.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah,
Like,
and you definitely see that
way
a lot more.
You feel secure, and you no longer focus on, okay, am I standing right? And I know you get over it, but you still always do a little bit of this that sends those little mini wakes out into where you're trying to catch fish. The inflatables don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's weird though, like standing on one of those things and kind of like jumping up and down on it. It like does that little flex.
Well, how many
maybe don't-
psi are you setting up your center chamber with?
I think 10
Keep going.
to what do you
Like
recommend
15.
for it?
Do 15. Yeah. Because here's what happens when whatever your propulsion is, especially with a motor, if there's flex and it rocks like this,
Yep.
that because you don't have it tight enough, it eats up the power by bending it. Whereas if you
Yeah,
get
that
it
makes
really
sense.
tight and it stays rigid, it's faster. I said that this boat got 6.8 mile per hour. I think we tested that at 12 psi. It may get a little bit more if it's, if we take it up to 15, but
Yeah.
10's a little loose. 10 is squishy for the drop stitch flooring. Now the outer tubes, 3. And here's the weird thing. It'll be 3 if you do it on a cold day and it's 3, and then you'll check it again, 2 days later after you've had a warming trend, and you're like, I'm at like 4.5. How'd that happen? Well, it just the heat,
Yep.
that same amount of air just went and got bigger. So you do need to look at it in terms of relative to the temperature, what is it? But
Gotcha.
I think the drop stitch flooring, I know of some that have gone up to like 17, 18. I think
like
Trey
a
is
board.
saying that he's happy with 12. I think you could probably take it to 15.
Huh.
So
It's good to know.
I'll tell you what, I'll take mine and I'll crank it up and see if I blow it up.
That'd be a good video.
That would be just put a tire machine on it and just see what happens.
Yeah.
No, because your luck could be like
Sea Eagle does a really cool video. If you go to the Sea Eagle website, look for the video where they run over their boats with Jeeps.
Oh man.
It's like in a gravel parking lot. They're like, they're tough. Look. And they run over it. And I'm like, yeah, I get
funny.
that.
Has anybody like ever noticed that all these companies, whenever they test any type of durability, it's always with a Wrangler?
Yeah.
And like the place you would never run over something, like on a back trail. It's like, yeah, our stuff's tough. And it's like on a mud trail, and a Jeep Wrangler that's jacked up with a Dana 44 underneath it. It's just like, runs right over it. And I was like, okay, like,
that's
why?
Funny.
Not, I mean, I'm not going to run over stuff anyway. I'm cool that your product lives through it, but I'm not going to do that. But you should definitely make a video on an air compressor and just see how much goes into it. But I can already see it now. It'll be a video and it's like 15 minutes long. You're just waiting. And somehow that the Osprey or the NRS, or well, not NRS. Yeah, the NRS, like the CUDA is going at like 35 PSI. It's not blowing up yet. You're like, let's try to fish out of this and see what you do with the Torpedo. It goes like 10-1.
I think you'd have a heart attack if you actually did get it to go out there, because it would be really loud.
It'd be kind of cool though to see what's inside of see the actual drop stitch inside.
So I've done that. One of the ways that you can have a leak is at the valve and where it seats. So honestly, what these are, there's actually a round hole they've cut out of it, and they put a little plastic piece on the inside and then one on the top, and they screw together, and then they pinch the edges of that round hole.
Oh, it's like a pressure valve.
If it doesn't seat right, or if you have one of the little strings, so you have your top layer and your bottom layer, and in between there are these strings that go from ceiling to the floor. If you look at drop stitch flooring, it has all these little dots, these little dimples. Yep. Those dimples are the strings, and that's what, like in a cave, stalactites and stalagmites, except if they actually connect, it's like a pillar. They're like little string pillars everywhere. And because they're fighting that totally rupturing and blowing up in both directions, that's how you're able to get that much pressure in there. That's how it's a higher pounds per square inch chamber than just one that's just a round circle, which is the outside. The outer tube, the round circle is 3. Just do 3. don't get goofy with those because they will go. But it's fine. Like it's actually kind of nice because in the center chamber, it stays rigid, and then the circle on either side, they're like they're bumpers. They're just, I can't explain it. It's they kind of shift with whatever water you're on. They kind of roll up, or it's something they squish in. They're shock absorbers. That's another thing that I will say though, when you go from a rotomolded boat, especially if you're fishing rivers, when you go from rotomolded boat to inflatable, you feel as though you've been driving a car your whole life and you've been driving on your rims, and all of a sudden someone puts tires on the rims and you're like, wow, it can be this nice, right? And it is. It's just soft. It's forgiving. It's stealthy, stable, shallow draft, but like forgiving. It's like, you go over rocks that normally you'd just be like that. And instead you just like, you hear that little rub, and it's like, that was so nice. That was such a better experience than pinballing my way through a rock garden.
Yeah.
I've done that. Sucks.
Yeah.
And you always worried about what's happened to the boat. And like, that's what I was like. I'll hit rocks and be like, oh man, did I just do something like that? I'm going to have to melt plastic to fix.
Probably not.
Or you can just zip.
But if you do, you should know how to do that, Matt.
Oh, well, believe me, I've put that skill because I do some stupid stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I shouldn't. And I tell listeners all the time, don't do whatever me and Brad do, because we've done some stupid things that we should do.
The first boat that I plastic welded, I ruined. I absolutely ruined. It was a Perception Access. It was a whitewater boat. It was a boat that had a skirt on it. I actually had 3 of those over the years, but the first one I had that I paid, that was, I forget what I paid for it. I remember buying it, and thinking, man, it took me a long time to save up to get this one and the skirt. You had to get a skirt. And I was wearing helmets then too, because like I was doing things that you needed a helmet and nose plugs. Anyways, I was so sad when I ruined that, because like, I mean, I had that thing at that point 3 years, and that was the only boat I was in for 3 years. And I kayak fished like daily most of those 3 years. and just honestly, what were the hole in the bottom was not going through white water at high rate of speed. And it wasn't even like dragging it from the truck to the water, which I would do. It was when it would get really low, and here's the bottom, and you go and you stop. And then you're sitting there, you're like, oh, but the deeper water's like right over here. And you do the butt scoot.
Oh, the scoot. Yep.
Yeah. The scoot is what takes the most plastic off your boat.
Oh, well, crap. I do the scoot all the time.
Because you put your weight into grinding the material off.
Yeah, that makes sense. I need to stop scooting and just get out. Or, I mean, yeah, I scoot a lot. So
I do too.
Yeah, we all do. That's just normal.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that's what eats it up at a higher rate of whatever. Or just getting inflatable. You don't have to worry about scooting at all.
I've been thinking, especially because like me and my wife, we try to go to Florida. That's the place we like to go. We're basically 70 years old in my 30s and her late 20s, because I just love Florida. And I always want to bring a boat down there. And every time I think about it, I was like, man, I got to bring my big plastic boat. I got to bring my trailer or put it on top of my wife's car, which my gas mileage goes from decent to poo immediately. So I'm like, man, an inflatable would be perfect. And then I just never do it. So I think this year, because I'm going back, I'm just going to do it and call it a day.
Get rid of your canoe, man. Get an inflatable.
I do have a 17-foot Grumman that I could just get rid of. I've been at it one time since I bought it last season, and I was gonna make it a duck boat, and I was like,
They
you know
live
what, man?
forever. Those things live forever.
Oh, I would believe I bought it from the Loveland Canoe Mark over there, and he was like, I promise this will be a canoe you can give to like your grandkids.
Yep.
And now that I'm thinking, I was like, man, I don't really care if my grandkids have a boat. To be
Right.
honest, they can buy their own. So, or they can just go on Craigslist and find one that it's probably mine that I sold
think
to some guy.
the 17-foot Grumman that convinced me to fish out of a kayak was, I remember it wasn't like secondhand or third hand or fourth hand. It was like, I mean, so many different people had owned this boat. But they, like, for whatever reason, we looked back at the serial number, and I think it was like early 60s.
Jeez.
Yeah. And
Oh man,
totally, nothing wrong with it.
Yeah,
Dense.
Tanks.
that's awesome.
It's probably had a
Tanks.
couple weld spots, but good to go.
Yeah, that's insane.
So,
But all right, while we're wrapping up, Brad, do you have anything else?
No, man, we hit it. I was just enjoying listening to
Oh yeah,
Jeff's knowledge.
This was great. It's literally like I was able to watch a YouTube video on my side gig of Paddle and Fin, which was awesome. Jeff, really appreciate you coming on.
sure.
Let everyone know again where they can find you, links, names, the whole nine, and everything he says we'll have linked below when the show comes
Here's
out.
what I'm going to tell you about the YouTube channel. If you just go there and you watch whatever's on the top, I'll have some good content there. Probably have some, a rigging video or exploring some water I've not been on and, never seen before in Tennessee and catching smallmouth or Susquehanna rivers fishing, whatever. There's going to be some good stuff there, but you're not getting the full advantage of learning a lot of stuff unless you dig into the playlist. Find something in the playlist that interests you. It could be tacklecraft. I do a lot of videos on making my own baits. It could be rigging kayaks. There's one that's kayaks and kayak rigging. That's its own playlist. If you're, say you're coming to the Tidal Potomac for a kayak fishing tournament, I have an entire playlist on tidal largemouth. I have a striped bass one. I have a walleye one. I have redfish, offshore kayak fishing, just a little bit of everything. Obviously, there's a Torpedo ultralight one, which is all the videos of all the different models of kayaks that show you step by step how to install a Torpedo on whatever kayak is out there. I have so many of those. But the playlists really unlock, finding content that you really will benefit from and turn around and put that new knowledge to use.
Mm-hmm.
If all you do is hit the subscribe button and see what comes at you, you're missing out. It's drill down to topics that interest you specifically through the playlist, exploring the playlist. That's it. You can also follow me on Instagram. It's Jeff Little Kayak Fishing. I think you've had it running the whole time in the show.
Yep.
The Instagram is where, with reels, I put things up immediately as they're happening. Was on the water today, had a brand new reel, which the video for that is up now. But I handed the reel to rod and reel to my buddy Jake Harshman, and I'm like, here, check it out. And I just started filming it as it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever I'm in the middle of, I put on Instagram first, and it's almost like a preview for what you're going to see later on the YouTube with a more edited, polished. Here's your lesson today. And that's really what the little stuff is. I'm trying to teach, whether it's my knowledge or my putting the camera on someone else to get their knowledge. It's really it's educational. It's there to
for sure.
It's there to make you a better angler. That's really what it is. So
yeah, and it is definitely one of the most educational YouTubes you can look at because every single video has some aspect, except for one when you didn't talk the whole time, and it threw me at first because it was just video playing. You're just fishing, and I was like, "What is he gonna like say something?"
Nope.
And then I looked down the description, and you said you were not saying nothing, and I was like, "Oh, cool."
Right.
So then I just watched. I think it was a long, like not like ridiculously long, but it was a longer video. You just fishing, and I was
Yep.
like, I just put it on, and just sitting there. And my wife comes in, and she's like, "What? Is he like?"
I tell you why I did that. I had been at the Miami International Boat Show, and I was just talked out. But I'm like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go up on the river
I
and
hear
like
that.
do a video, and just I don't feel like talking. I just like I started doing. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna see if I can teach something and just like not say anything and just like show stuff. And I think it worked.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I would agree.
I mean,
I thought it was
there
a
were some
great
lessons
video.
in there.
Yeah, I was definitely picking stuff out. My wife is, I subject her because I watch all this stuff when I'm in bed, and she's next to me trying to watch stuff on the iPad. And
Right.
I'm deaf because, again, the Marine Corps gave me a lot of lovely gifts when I got out, like a bad back, bad knees, and deaf. So I turned my TV's turned all the way up with our surround sound speakers, and she's like, "Can you turn it down?" I was like, "No, I can't hear." So, you're welcome for my service.
Yeah.
And I would sit there like picking stuff, talking to myself, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, literally just taking notes to myself. She's like, "She's not saying anything." I was like, "Exactly."
Yeah. Don't need
It's
to.
just what I'm noticing, because there's
Right.
some aspects of stuff you're doing that I was like, "Oh yeah, I already know how to do that." And then there's some aspects like, "Oh, I never thought about doing that." So yeah, you should do more of those because it's
Yeah.
awesome. So
Winter fishing videos like that.
yeah, that would be that would be great. Just
The one that's on Sunday is cold water crankbaiting, and I'm not good at it. I've watched. I know another true OG in the sport who was the first kayak angler that I knew that was filming his adventures is Kayak Kevin Whitley. Who's been, it's funny, he's drum Jesus. He's good
Yeah.
at like the mouth of Chesapeake Bay, big striper and cobia and redfish and all of those saltwater species is really what he's known for. But he's gone full tilt river smallmouth in Virginia and running whitewater, and it's fun watching him. But he's been smashing big, like on the Rappahannock River is one of them, like smashing big smallmouth in the middle of winter, like 36-degree water with a crankbait. I'm like, I can't
That's
do
awesome.
that. I want to learn how to do that. Guys down in the New River, Timmy Dixon is one of them. I know Tony Bryant, who took my kayak fishing class forever ago. He got like I think it was a mid-6, not long ago, crankbait in cold
Whew.
water. So I'm like, I got to make this. I got to, we still have a little winter left on the Susquehanna. Like I think recently we've had like 41 to 43-degree water temperature. It hasn't totally gone to spring yet. It's somewhere, it's still holding on to a little bit of winter. And
Same here.
I think it
Yep.
was Friday I went out and I just said, I'm gonna force this, and I used it was a Berkeley Money Badger in the
That was a cool looking crankbait.
Killer
Yep.
Craw. It's the right color for the Susquehanna for sure. I got three doing it, and then I was like, okay, all right, I got some traction. Now I'm gonna just right at the end of the trip just catch one on jerkbait and catch one on a small bottom bounce soft plastic, and it was just like boom boom. It's like, yeah, I could have spent the whole time doing jerkbait and bottom bounce and soft plastic, just nailing fish. But I was like, no, I gotta pick something that I'm not good at and get better at it. I gotta pick a presentation that is not in my bag of tricks yet and just get better at them. So
Yep, I do the same thing. You can ask Brad. We went out one day. Yeah, that color was money.
So that color, but I was using the 6.25, which I think is the middle one.
Okay. Right there.
Yeah. I knew I picked up one of those at the dugout in Marietta, Georgia. And then one in the I forget what the other. It was like an olive craw, but it has an orange belly. Haven't used that one yet, but I'm actually going down to work the dugout bait and tackle booth at the Bassmaster Classic, and I called up Jamie Koza. I'm like, hey man, if you think of it, do you mind just like grabbing a couple more of those killer craws in the 6.25? We'll see if he remembers. But
no, that's the easiest way to, in my opinion, to learn a technique you're not comfortable with. You can ask Brad. This last season, I went out with a shaky head for the river, and I never really did it. And I had that, and he's like, "You throw that the whole time?" I was like, "Until I catch fish on it, yeah. I'm just gonna force myself to do it."
Yeah.
And I just went out there, and I was thinking, I was like, "Man, I'm about to put this down. Everyone else catch fish and get ticked off," and I just felt, and I was like, "Oh, what?" And I literally said it like I was pitching and flipping down to Okeechobee, but I set this and it was on a big 6 cents divine worm, like 8 or 9 inch, and
Right.
I catch this fish, comes up at like a 10-inch smallmouth, and I was like, I did it.
Right.
And then I caught 6 more, like right after, like bam, 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 and I was like, all right, cool. And then just like now I'm like, yeah, I'll use it all the time. So it's just building the confidence. Once you have a confidence in the bait, man, it's game over, especially in it's just game over.
A little bit of traction goes a long way, and that's what I gained last Friday. That's going to be this coming Sunday's video.
Nice.
Oh, I'm excited. I'm pumped to watch it. But on that note, everyone, this has been a longer show, but this has been fantastic. I love the show. The show's going to be great. Thanks for sticking with us to the very end. Dale Hollow comes up in less than a month. Less than a month at this point. So April 20th, 21st, 22nd, I think.
A month and 1 day.
A month and 1 day, whatever, close enough. Definitely check it out. Paddle and Fin, yearly tournament down at Dale Hollow, Eastport Marina. Going to be a blast. Come down, hang out with all of us. And Brad, you got anything else?
Nope, we're good to go.
Dope. Jeff, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. See you guys.